Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Bluff City. This is episode number 4, and I'm just in disbelief every time that I hear myself say that. Every time I complete an episode is really a surprise to me. It's been about 2 weeks since episode 3, and 2 weeks is about the pace that I want to aim for. I know I wanted to get the first couple of episodes back to back each week before I kind of lost interest and moved on to something completely different. I have been working on quite a number of assets this past week, and a couple of them are specifically for this episode, which you will see later in the time lapse, so definitely stay tuned for that. In this episode, we're going to be working on the Skyline and the Central Business District, and this episode is going to mostly be time lapse, and I have quite a few cinematics at the end. Probably next episode I'll kind of do an in-game overview. Right now, I'm laying the framework for our Main Street and Court Square Park. Again, I created a real basic template or park layout in the asset editor, just with paths, tables, and benches, so that they will be functional in-game without having to use workshop assets. I'm lining Main Street with this red brick pavement decal. One thing you might have seen me do is place another asset on top of the brick decals. I'm not really particular when it comes to this game, but one thing that I really hate is when you have a large area of decals placed and you zoom out and the whole area disappears. So I created an invisible decal. Really, it's a building that has no stats and is invisible when you place it. However, when you zoom out, the LOD of the building kicks in. And the LOD is just a simple polygon that matches the same color of the red brick decals. I don't think I'm going to upload it to the workshop just because it's really specific to what I'm using it for right here. I'm going through my assets to get an idea of some of the buildings that I want to use to make up the Central Business District. It's typical in most American cities that the downtown will have these older brick New York style type buildings, and they will be interspersed with more modern recent developments. I really like what $2.20 has done with Springwood and making it a city that's set in the 1980s and not really using a whole lot of modern buildings. That's kind of what I'm going for with Bluff City. However, it's definitely set in present time, but it just hasn't seen a lot of huge modern development. The core of the downtown buildings is made up of mostly Feinbill, Darf, Prosper, and Chrysler's New York buildings. And I went back and forth to the workshop countless amounts of times, and I see a lot of good buildings that I didn't even realize that I had already subscribed to. There are just so many assets available for the workshop right now, and that's going to be one of the challenges in doing a mid to large size American city. Definitely here in Memphis, which Bluff City is based on. There are so many different building styles, from historic areas of downtown to modern and contemporary apartments and office buildings. There are European style homes and apartments in midtown areas. There are Victorian homes and, of course, suburban cookie cutter type houses. And maybe it's just me and workshop addiction, but I really feel like you have to have a little of everything to do a typical American city. Looking past Bluff City and in future projects, if there are any, it will definitely have to be a smaller scope and setting, just to limit the number of assets that I have. Officially, I only have about 1,600 assets, which isn't bad at all, but due to the different props and decal packs and assets that are grouped together, my asset total is a little over 2,700 that are actually loaded into the game. And like most people, I'm constantly adding different assets daily. Right now is not a problem, but definitely something that I want to keep an eye on moving forward. So it would be awesome if asset creators could kind of slow down a little bit on the number of assets. I'm not really talking about what you're seeing in the time lapse, because I'm just placing buildings. And if you're watching this, then I'm pretty sure that you've seen other people place buildings before. Some of the buildings you'll see me place are just stand-in or temporary buildings. The white building with the spire is located in downtown Memphis. And I've had the basic shape of this model for a long time. I'm using it here until I can make some inroads in getting it complete. I originally wanted to have 3 skyscrapers finished by the time I uploaded this episode, but I'm just so far off from any progress with that building. But to even be able to use it as a placeholder, I had to throw on some temporary textures and an LOD on it. It has about 15,000 triangles right now with all of the windows, which is fine for me to use locally, but I'm just not seeing it getting workshop ready anytime within the next month or so. The building on the left represents the tallest building in Bluff City. Ultimately, I had to replace it because of the LOD, and I'm not sure if I'll do a custom building for it or not, or if I'm just going to leave it with what I replaced it with later on in the time lapse. I definitely want to create a larger pyramid, but I don't have any definite plans for it right now. I kind of want to stick to smaller assets that I can get done, in a short period of time, versus assets like skyscrapers and pyramids and arenas, in which could easily drag on for months. Although I have some very minor tweaks, I'm 99% finished with the first Skyline bank building, and you'll see that I replaced the Coca-Cola building with One Commerce Square, which is another building in Memphis. It was originally the home of the National Bank of Commerce and had a simple black NBC logo on the facade. In recent years, it was the home of SunTrust Bank and had the SunTrust logo on it. Currently, it has a red and white logo of Independent Bank, which is headquartered here in Memphis. I decided to take Commerce Square and use the initials and create a logo modeled after the original NBC logo, which can obviously have a double meaning. Both buildings should be on the workshop at the time you're watching this episode, and as always, the links will be in the description. Overall, I'm really liking the look and development of the city. With this episode, we've more than doubled the footprint, and I'm just really excited to see the different places it goes from here. One thing that I'm not looking forward to are things like train lines and harbors and industrial areas, or even natural areas. I think that's going to be a struggle for me because those are things that I'm just not really that into. And watching other YouTube series, those are usually the parts that I fast forward through. So it should be really interesting to see how I navigate through that part of the series. But for right now, I'll let y'all watch the time lapse and enjoy the music. I'll be back to wrap things up and talk about plans for the next episode. What's up, y'all? I'm back, and I will say, rewatching the time lapse, I'm very pleased and enjoyed the progress that we've made thus far. It's definitely not 100% finished, and I'll fill in things as we go along. The area on the left side of downtown and by the pyramid will be the area that has all our government buildings like City Hall and courthouses. So hopefully that will be in a future episode. In the next episode, it's going to be primarily focused on residential neighborhoods. We don't have nearly enough residents to fill up all the office buildings that I just placed. So I'm going to try to meet the need for that. I've also been working on a couple of really awesome low density residential buildings and houses that are really going to work well for what I do in the next episode. Also, I've revisited one of my oldest assets. It was really one of my first popular assets that I had on the workshop. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave me a comment or hit me up on Facebook or Twitter. And definitely, please subscribe. My number of subscribers is still in struggle mode, so it really would be appreciated. Hit the like button and share the video if you've enjoyed. And hopefully I will see all of y'all back here in the next episode.